Today I'm going to share with you 8 different veggies that I'm growing in my Central Florida garden this spring. I'll share with you the species of these veggies as well as some tips specific to growing them in your Central Florida garden. The first veggie I'm growing in my garden this spring are tomatoes. I actually have 4 tomato plants growing right now that I started from seed. They are a red beefsteak tomato, small red cherry tomato, a Rutgers, and a Jubilee. Here's some general tips for growing tomatoes. They typically prefer slightly acidic soils, so if you want to adjust the pH for a tomato bed, just make sure it's below 7 or slightly acidic. Again, I typically don't have any issues keeping my whole veggie garden around a 6.5 to a 7. For your larger tomato species, it's best to start those inside well before the danger of last frost, as these tomatoes will stop fruiting when it gets really hot outside. And because we're in Florida, we really have 2 seasons, and that's hot and hotter. So you want to beat that heat and try to bring those tomatoes to fruit before our dog days of summer. However, when it comes to cherry tomatoes, those will produce through a lot of the summer. I actually had like 4 cherry tomato plants last spring, and I ended up with way more cherry tomatoes that I could even handle growing throughout the summer. So cherry tomatoes are a good choice if you want to continue to get more crop. All right, you'll want to try to keep your tomatoes healthy, because if you don't, then it can attract diseases and pests. I just had to get rid of some aphids off of my tomatoes. Those things are little assholes, so you'll just want to check your plants a couple times a week and try to keep up with that and keep them healthy. And for your tomatoes, I have an excellent recipe. Go try out my bruschetta recipe, which I will link down in the comments. The second type of veggie I'm growing in my spring Florida garden are peppers. One thing I love about peppers is that they're very heat and drought resistant. And a few breeds that I'm growing in my garden this spring are Emerald Giant Bell Peppers, Ancho Grande, Fresno Hot Chili Pepper, Early Flame Jalapeno, and Habanero peppers. Perhaps you can tell that I intend on making some salsa. These beautiful plants are great to plant alongside cilantro, not only for that salsa garden, but it helps repel bad insects as well as attract beneficial ones that'll help keep those bad insects at bay. Something I've been learning the hard way lately is that it's best to start your pepper seeds inside, as they get washed away really easily. And for my pepper recipe, you should check out my stuffed peppers. The third veggie that I'm growing in my garden are radishes, and these ones are white icicle radishes. What I absolutely love about this variety is that it can be harvested within 30 days and you can keep replanting them throughout the season. As with most, if not all, root veggies, they're best to sow directly in loose soil. This is why I prefer putting in my beds. Here's a root veggie that I put in the ground in not so loose soil. Still pulling rocks out of this bed. So there wasn't enough room for these carrots and radishes to grow. And check out this beautiful white icicle radish that I pulled out of my raised bed garden. Additionally, radishes and other root veggies are going to need plenty of potassium to grow. A typical problem we have in Florida are that radishes and many other plants really will bolt. And basically this is when it gets too hot. You'll see the top of the plant shoot up and start producing seeds and flowers. At this point, your radishes are no longer going to grow, and if you don't pull them out of the ground, they can get woody and or a lot spicier tasting. So make sure you pull those out. This can also happen if they've just been in the ground too long. And in doing this video, I realized that I have been slacking on making some recipes for some certain different veggies. So if I don't mention them, stay tuned. I'm going to come up with some recipes for those veggies soon. The fourth veggie I'm growing is a purple Vienna kohlrabi. It's recommended to sow these directly in the garden or to transplant when they're young. To be honest, I have yet to get one to grow when I just stick the seed in the ground. And perhaps I just mixed this up with weeds when I was weeding, but I'm starting some inside right now and I'm seeing the sprouts. So I'm going to go ahead and harden these off soon and put them in the ground. Contrary to what I thought, they're actually not a root veggie. They are actually part of the brassica family, which includes veggies like cauliflower and broccoli. A fun fact about this veggie is they used to be really rare, and there's actually no historical record of them before 1550 AD. I'm excited to grow these in my garden because I cannot find them in our grocery stores. And I tried them in California several years ago and have since been craving this delicious veggie. I highly recommend you try growing them in your garden. Not only do they taste good, but they look kind of cool. The fifth veggie I'm growing is rainbow Swiss chard. While many greens are a cold season crop, these greens are heat tolerant, which makes them a great spring crop. I sowed these directly in the ground, and as you can see, I'm going to need to grow some more because these are going to go fast. Make sure you check their roots for root knot nematodes if they've been growing really slowly. The sixth veggie I'm growing, well, grain, but a lot of us call it a veggie, is early sunglow hybrid corn. This variety is suggested by the University of Florida's agricultural department, so I know it's going to be great in Florida. And that's a good thing because I've actually never grown corn before, so I'm super excited to grow this corn along the back side of my fence. In a limited amount of space like I have, you're likely going to have to hand pollinate your corn. I'm going to let you guys go ahead and Google that because that could be a whole video in and of itself. Maybe I'll do that in the future. Corn is best companion planted with beans and or squash. These plants help produce more nitrogen, and nitrogen is what corn plants crave. Another added benefit are that beans can vine up the corn, which I can imagine looks pretty cool. When the kernels are filled and tightly packed, it's time to harvest your corn. Don't wait too long and eat quickly for best flavor. I suggest using this delicious corn in my Cajun chicken salad. It's grilled and super tasty in this salad. The seventh veggie I'm putting in my garden is ever-bearing cucumber. These should be grown in March, and today it's April 1st, so if you haven't planted these yet, you better do that now. Cucumbers in general require lots of water and sun. Different species have different habits, like some vine and some bush. The ever-bearing species I'm planting is a vining cucumber, and it's great for pickling. The eighth and certainly not final veggie that I'm growing this spring is a golden scallop squash. I say certainly not final because I've gotten a little obsessed with this and I get 5 new veggie seeds the 5th of every month. I love the seed membership that I'm using. They surprise me with 5 different seeds every month tailored to my area. I'll leave a link to that down in the description. This golden scallop squash looks super cool. It's one of many summer squashes that you can grow this spring. Now, summer is misleading because most squashes do not fruit during the summer. You'll definitely want to get those started soon. If your fruit is wrinkled or drops prematurely, you're going to want to make sure that you hand pollinate. You'll make your life a whole lot easier if you plant some flowers and herbs that'll help attract some of those pollinating insects. If you get any pests attacking your squash, you'll want to try to avoid using pesticides as these can kill those pollinating insects. When harvesting, leave an inch or two of the stem as this helps it store longer. Now, I can't wait to get the squash to create a recipe, but for now, I've got a turkey meatballs and a creamy pesto sauce over spaghetti squash. All of these veggies are great for any Zone 9 area as well. Before you start your spring veggie garden, make sure that you clear out all the plants from the season before, as well as amend and till the soil with some more compost. Your veggie garden should be around a 6.5 to 7 pH. Different veggies have different pH requirements, but they all fall around this range. You'll want to make sure that your soil is drainable. If you're planting your veggies right in the ground here in Central Florida, that is not going to be a problem for you. Often the problem I have is retaining moisture, but this is definitely something you want to keep in mind if you're putting together some raised beds. Also, regardless of whether you sow these veggies inside or out, you'll want to make sure that you're not putting them into the ground until the danger of last frost has passed, which in Florida is around the end of February. Once you put your veggies in the ground to help retain that moisture, I do highly suggest mulching. I typically just use some leaves that we've gathered up to mulch my veggie garden. You'll also want to fertilize right after you put your plants in the ground. I love to use this slow release fertilizer for my veggie gardens. You typically only have to fertilize with this every few months. Finally, make sure that your veggie garden is getting 1 to 2 inches of water per week, which is about 90 minutes throughout the week. Here in Florida, like today, we usually don't have to worry too much about water during a rain spell. However, when it gets dry here, it gets really dry. So stay on top of making sure your plants get the water they need. All right, and I hope you guys enjoy growing these veggies in your Florida or Zone 9 garden. I'm super psyched to see how mine turn out. Subscribe to this channel and follow me on Instagram at CleanCookingCaitlin so that you can see how my veggies are doing throughout the season. Let us know what you're growing in your garden in the comments, and I hope to see you all soon.